Thanks for staying with us. Justice and Correctional Services Minister Michael Mangosuthu has quashed any suggestions of presidential pardons and blanket amnesty. But Mangosuthu says his department will approach the National Prosecuting Authority to consider cases of fees must fall activists who are languishing in jail. Kylie Kumalo has more.
As Minister of Justice, at no stage have I ever, and at no stage will I ever, instruct the National Prosecuting Authority or any prosecutor in South Africa whether they should proceed or not proceed with the prosecution of anyone.
Mangosuthu setting the record straight about how cases involving fees must fall activists will be handled. Is committing to ask the NPA to evaluate each case to determine the seriousness of the charges, the weight and evidence available. Most of the students have been charged with public violence. He says presidential pardon is only granted to those who have been convicted and sentenced. But there are preconditions.
Presidential pardons are granted in respect of convicted and sentenced persons only, on the basis of information they provide and in circumstances where the applicant has shown good cause. Under no circumstances can the presidential pardon be predetermined.
Student activists such as Bonginkosi Kanyile, who has had a sleep out at the Union Buildings, Pretoria, and is due to be sentenced, are lambasting the minister's plan, saying it lacks specifics.
What the minister has said, it was a lecture on law and more rhetorical, which lacks facts on how should we therefore deal with the issues that we are faced with. While therefore saying the committee of students that will be established must work with the minister in terms of dealing with the specifics. How do we then pardon all students of which were affected during the course of the fees must fall?
The minister is not giving a time limit for the investigations by the NPA, but Kanyile says there is a plan of action.
Yeah.
We can't declare now. The minister is uneasy. He wants to go and report. So if you say we're going to assemble by Union Buildings, you'll find the police officers are already there by Union Buildings. Or they just catch me here and I'm processed and dealt with like that.
Meanwhile, the Justice Department says the country's laws allow for alternatives such as diversion, mediation, or other forms of restorative justice in the case of students who are yet to appear in court. Kylie Kumalo, Pretoria.
Let's talk tourism now. Stakeholders say the tourism sector should be in better shape than it is at the moment. Performances dropped significantly in the first half of 2018. The Tourism Business Index has also seen a sharp drop. Let's bring in now tourism lecturer and expert Unathi Sonwabile Enama for more on this. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, according to that, we've seen a performance drop, a very significant one, so much so that we are talking about it right now. What do you believe is the reason for that drop in business?
South Africa is not improved its tourism competitiveness. If you look at the World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Competitive Report 2015, we're number 48 in the world. And then our intention was to be within the top 20 destinations by the year 2020. Then the visa regulations came. And then if you go and look at the 2017 report, we are number 53 in the world. And if tourism is described as the new gold, a decrease in tourism should be letting alarms all over, because that means tourism jobs are being lost. And we are creating a lot of jobs, actually even more than mining, and we contribute 2.9% of GDP. So this is a no-brainer of an industry. It just requires government support.
Now, I was quite shocked to learn today that tourism employs the second most people in South Africa. That is a huge number of people that's depending on this industry.
Most definitely, the tourism sector needs to succeed, but we require government support. And I think maybe the focus for too long was always on the visa issues, but there are a lot of issues that we need to look at. For example, aviation access, in addition to the visas. And number 3, safety and security. If the great adage is that if the towns are great enough for the people to stay there, the tourists will naturally come. And the high level of crime in South Africa limits tourism consumption and also makes tourism businesses to employ security, which is actually very expensive. So the crime situation is another major issue, but we require greater coordination.
But it also means, if the crime situation is a major issue, it also means that the messaging that's going out is not combating that reputation that South Africa has as a crime capital in the world. Because if you speak to foreign visitors who've come here, you hear them say, I heard such bad things about South Africa in terms of crime, but I've come here and I've had the most amazing time. Obviously, they have to watch what they do, like you do in most places in the world, but they've had a great time. Why are we not getting that message out there?
Tourism sector is underfunded in South Africa. It doesn't have the political weight. And I believe we must constantly remind principals that the tourism sector is very critical. It's a job creator par excellence. For every 12 tourists that come here, 1 permanent job is created. And I believe, honestly, this should be the biggest enabler of growth in our country. But I still believe there's no political will to assist the sector.
Now let's talk about that. I mean, you spoke about those visa regulations that knocked tourism to a point that they haven't recovered yet. I remember being in that press conference at the Union Buildings at the height of that story. And the response to a question that I put to Jeff Radebe, I believe it was at the time, he said that the impact on tourism was unintended consequences. Can you remember that quote? I mean, the tourism minister at the time must have been pulling out his hair. But then you fast forward to the State of the Nation address, where the newly President Cyril Ramaphosa put a large chunk of his speech focused on what they need to do in tourism. But still, you're saying that the political will isn't there to lift the industry.
The political will is not by their own creation, because the tourism industry is coordination intensive. It goes across several ministries. So the Interministerial Committee on Migration was supposed to become a permanent committee of the tourism sector, obviously chaired by the Deputy Minister. So that conversation has not occurred in the country, and then it becomes difficult to coordinate as a minister while speaking with peers. So that's the new conversation we should be having about the tourism sector: tourism red tape and coordination.
Now let's look at another one of the numbers that came out. There's a drop in visitors from places like India and China, and those used to be hotspots for South African tourism to attract visitors from. Apparently, a lot of Indian visitors now rather going to Australia. What can we do to combat that pattern?
I think we must engage with them. Remember, India is a cricket-crazy country, and we've got AB de Villiers who should be basically the face of that. But we must engage, obviously, with tour operators and find out what is the problem and try and properly diagnose the challenge. But the most important thing is that we must stop this South African exceptionalism. South Africa is at the tip of Africa. We are at a geographic disadvantage.
It's very far.
It's very far. So we need to make it as easy as possible for people to come to this country. It's one of the few countries in South Africa where you don't find, when you are going with kids, you are put, you are processed quickly. So there is an entire mind shift that we must undertake with the government.
Now, we seem to be doing some things right. Anecdotally, I've just spent a week in the Kruger National Park, and I had the most amazing experience. I just went in as a normal person. We booked months in advance because you have to, because they're always fully booked. There were international visitors everywhere, and everybody you spoke to there, and in my own experience, had the most amazing service from people working there. The bungalows and the chalets people stayed in were perfectly looked after and maintained. The roads were well maintained. The signs were perfect. So organizations like Sandparks are getting it right, and their booking numbers speak for it. Why are we not learning from that as an example?
It's a great model of a well-run institution that should be protected. So I think at the center of all of these things, that governance and management are important. And by governance and management, I'm speaking everywhere. If a municipality is serious about delivering to the residents, then the roads are well, then the tourists will come.
If you build it and you maintain it, they will come.
They will come.
I think we'll leave it there for now. Our tourism lecturer, expert from TUT, Unati Sonwabile Henama, we thank you for your time, as always. Moving on now to politics. Inkatha Freedom Party leader, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, is celebrating his 90th birthday. It's a milestone for a veteran leader with a controversial past who's been at the helm of his party since its formation. A massive birthday celebration is planned for Buthelezi in Ulundi, northern KwaZulu-Natal. Sipamandla Koke caught up with the birthday prince.
A long, active life for a veteran leader. At 90, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is still going strong.
I just feel very humble because I cannot say I deserve it. I deserve to have lived so long. And it's the kind of longevity which is a blessing from the Almighty God. And I just feel that as a Christian, in the book of Psalms, the lifespan of human beings is 70 years. So I always say that any extra years after 70 are just a bonanza. So I really thank God that, you know, I've had this bonanza to the extent that I've turned 90 years now. I think that there's a blessing from above. Not because I like living long, but because it has actually given me the opportunity of serving God's people, you know, my people, my country, for as long as I've served it.
But it's not been all smooth sailing. 90 years of ups and downs. But what has kept him going?
I'm just a sinner. But I always say that if there's anything I'm grateful for from my mother, she inculcated the fear of God in me. And I think that my faith has been a tower of strength to me. As you rightly say, Ms. Goge, I've gone through, with my wife, through a very difficult time. God had blessed us with 8 children. We have buried 5 of them. And some in very tragic circumstances. 2 died in car accidents. Others died through AIDS.
Sadly, Buthelezi's pillar of strength, his wife of 66 years, Princess Irene Mamzila, is too unwell to celebrate this special day with him.
She supported me, she prayed for me, and as you say, I'm very sorry that at this time, her life, I mean, she's not in very good health at present, and I'm very sad about that because she's of course younger than me, but nevertheless, her health has taken more toll than my own.
What does a 90-year-old love and looks forward to?
Our grandfather's clock was too wide for the hill, for he stood 20 years on the floor, you know, and so on. So I like choral music, I like jazz very much, and I like, you know, all kinds of music. You know, I enjoy my traditional music, food, you know, which have been brought up. You know, you have seen me many times when His Majesty the King or at other ceremonies that sometimes I lead the singing because my mother taught me. So I hope you enjoy a little more of all those things which I've not had time to enjoy.
Shenge, his press name, says people will feast on his behalf at his celebrations.
Because I've gout, I won't be eating meat. People will be enjoying meat. And even that was very difficult. It might interest you that when I was told that I must stop eating meat, for me as a Zulu, I said, how can they say that? How does one stop eating meat?
His advice to the younger generation who would love to live long, live a clean life free of alcohol and smoking. Sipamandla Koke, Durban.
Wise advice indeed. Coming